canceled, but it's my name, so I think I have permission to say it.
That's true.
Yeah. So, hey, everybody, this is the Watchers here. We got a Comedy Watchers episode tonight, and we are being joined by a very cool, interesting guest that we're going to talk to here in a minute after the intro. So we're being joined tonight by comedian, actor, author, showbiz aficionado, Matt Nagin. I want to thank you for joining us tonight, Matt.
Thank you so much for having me. And wow, that was an old-timey vaudeville intro. I really enjoyed that. I feel like I'm on one of those like 80s public access shows or something, but it's got a cool vibe. I like you guys, JC, Drew. We're gonna make the dreams happen here. This is the big time. So thanks for having me.
Those public access shows definitely had way more viewers.
Yeah, they did. I enjoyed those. I was a binge public access man. So I actually was on one when I started out doing this, and I played the sidekick to this guy with Tourette's who was a devil. And people would call in Ithaca. I went to Cornell, and they would call in. We were on the public access there and curse him out. And then he would go on a rant, and I was his sidekick, Mr. X. So.
That sounds actually super entertaining and something that I would have.
Yeah, wait, I want this on DVD.
Tried to record every episode.
Basically, it was totally uncensored, so they would make Tourettic jokes about him and call him the R word and various other spaz, and then he would just flip out for 3 minutes. It was a wild show, so it was like a subculture there.
Was that a character he did, or did he actually have Tourette's? And
No, he actually had Tourette's, but he just wore a devil thing, and then we had like Vietnam movie videos in the back of dead bodies and stuff, and apocalyptic, Hiroshima bombs and whatever. JFK assassination, back to the left, or whatever, the whole thing.
So Ithaca, New York is the place to be then, that's what you're telling me.
That's not bad. You got gorgeous, a lot of places you can jump. If you guys have suicidal urges, there's a lot of places to take yourself out.
Man, I've been looking for those since I started this podcast, which really
I have that effect on everybody. Yes. So you might want to call a loved one right now.
Done here. This is actually, you should have a suicide hotline as your sponsor for this. I think that could be big.
The suicide hotline is our sponsor.
Well,
we drive all over their business, so
yeah, there you go. The only problem is you have to replenish your fan base every couple of years because
they have kids sometimes.
Right. A couple of these listeners I wouldn't miss.
Wow! Oh!
Wow!
What is this? That is it. If I had the laugh track, where's the laugh track? JC's usually there with the sound effects. Let me try that one again.
We haven't used sound effects in like 3 months. Go ahead, say the joke again.
Do you have it?
I feel like I'm at the opera after the final aria. I don't know if there's a laugh track or an applause break. Whoa,
that's the wrong answer, man.
We did a live game show a couple of months back, and so we had a bunch of cheesy sound effects and stuff that I threw on to the show.
Yeah, that other one sounded more like a 1950s sci-fi photon or something.
War of the Worlds.
Yeah, or a B movie, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. What was that one? Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's one of our other shows. That's the Horror Watchers. I'm looking forward to talking about that at some point.
Nice.
So you're with us tonight because among all of the other things that you do, you're a stand-up comedian, and I have a fascination with stand-up. I'm of that generation where I was lucky enough to be part of that fan base that was in that late 90s, early 2000s boom. So when it started to hit again real hard, and Dane Cook exploded and Stephen Lynch and the tough crowd guys are really the Opie and Anthony's, and Jim Norton. I met Jim Norton a couple of weeks, maybe about a month ago, and that was kind of like a time bucket list moment for me.
Where'd you meet him?
Pittsburgh at the Palace Theater. He did a show, and I had a meet and greet, and I got to go hang out with him for a little bit.
Very nice.
Yeah, so he's touring. He's doing his new hour right now, and so that was kind of like incredible for me. But that's essentially
he was just
background.
he was just at the Star Dome. See, I'm in Alabama right now. I go to New York a lot. That's a club right by me. The month before, they were having these contests, so he was on the same contest. I mean, he was the headliner, obviously, but
Yeah.
I was on one with Jim Brewer last month at Star Dome. But yeah, he was the headliner this month. So, but yeah, he's touring around. I saw that. But anyway, sorry, I digress. But that's awesome. You got to meet him.
Yeah. So that's kind of my adolescence with comedy. Now I can remember like when I was obviously much younger. The kind of the late 80s, early 90s leftover, like the holdover stuff. It was obviously influential to me too. Growing up at that time period, seeing the late night stuff, as a child in between Cartoon Network, Tom and Jerry and stuff, and you flip through the channels at 1 or 2 in the morning, and there's always these crazy stand-up things on too, on like TBS or whatever. So, although I have never done it, it's kind of something that I always kind of regret never trying or committing to. So shows like this have been really fun for me to be able to talk to those who are doing it and have kind of, made a career out of it. And I think the entire scene is fascinating. I spend much of my life every day listening to old stand up or whatever's on Sirius and podcasts and, everything. So how did you get into it?
I just sort of fell into it. It wasn't a natural progression for me. I actually had no inclination whatsoever, except for that I was kind of a typical class clown, in high school and that sort of thing, just to avoid beatings, which came regularly because I always was a wise ass and messed with people and seemed to get myself in these shenanigans. But I really never thought of myself as a stand-up particularly. I was just more a writer, and I've written a few books, and I'm trying to put a few more out. But then I sort of fell into it I was in this writing course, for example, and people were saying, "Oh, you should try stand-up," because they were laughing at what I was writing. And to me, that was like a horrifying proposition. I just didn't see myself that way. But eventually, like, people convinced me to try it. And even though it was horrible, that sort of started getting me on. Once I started doing it, it's very addictive. It's almost like crack or something. So I recommend don't start because it'll ruin your life. Then you spend a lot too much time and effort on this crazy passion. But it's fun. I've had a lot of rewarding experiences with it, but it can be a very consuming activity because you're writing, you're refining your jokes, you're trying to get on stage, you're trying to travel to places, you're meeting people, there's a lot to it. So unless I try to discourage people from doing it. Not to say that you don't, or maybe you do it as a hobby, but if you're trying to do it with and that or at least have a side gig, which I've had in various times, because it's a very tough field. But if you can, it's certainly fun. But sorry, that sounded dark. But anyway, that's how I feel about it.
No, that's generally how everybody talks about it. Even people who have had like tremendous success at it. And there's almost like a sycophantic feeling behind doing it, or that there are a lot of people who go up there on stage are like secretly trying to fulfill whatever necessity they have of human contact and acceptance. And there's always like this dark undertone to going up there, and you're either telling jokes or you're gonna go back to the hotel and hang yourself. Like there's like
Exactly.
a weird
Exactly.
depression behind it. So maybe that's
Exactly.
why I always relate to it so much, because like just that that melancholy or mental illness or whatever that just plagues them. I never sought out the experience of telling jokes on stage to cope with it. We used to just beat the hell out of each other like, in the backyard with
Yeah, exactly.
with steel chairs and stuff when we were
Right.
kids to get by.
Right. Yeah. Michael Vick will hang a dog or two, or R. Kelly engages in something crazy activity with a 14-year-old. But me, I want to tell an abortion joke in front of strangers and get them to love me. But it's it's a very sick activity, and there has to be some depravity in your past. Probably not always, like you said, Seinfeld. I don't know. Some are well adjusted. There are well adjusted comedians, but many seem to have lacked some essence in their life of affection or uh, interest from their family or their friends, and then there's fulfilling some. For me, a lot of creativity, to be honest with you, is some existential angst that I'm working out. I mean, there's more to it than that, because I enjoy doing it. I find it interesting. It's kind of like a puzzle. You're trying to figure out, how do I structure this joke to get people to laugh? Oh, I take that out, all of a sudden they're laughing more. Or I start with this, so it's a bit of that. It's detective work.
So since we're on the subject, how do you feel about the state of comedy at the moment? Like, we know mainstream comedy, you kind of have to walk on eggshells. I talked to Dave. Are you familiar with Dave Landau? I talked
Oh
to Dave
yes,
Landau
yeah, he's big time.
about a month ago. I met
Mhm,
him, and
mhm,
he said that it was absolute shit
mhm,
to be a comedian right now. So
mhm.
do you share those same feelings, that it's like you can't make jokes anymore?
Um, yes and no. I hear what he's saying. I think it's opened up in certain areas. I mean, I haven't even been to Austin, and I hear there it's just all edge. But I've been to many places in the country. Every place is a little different. New York is and Philadelphia is going to be a little bit different than Alabama. I think I have run up against some issues with certain bookers and producers. Then there's others that are much more free thinking, or certain crowds. But uh, I think things have opened up a lot more than they were a year or two ago. People are wanting to hear. I think it's a backlash against all this Me Too and political correctness. I think comedy's in a bit of a boom right now. If anything, yes, you're going to run up against. That's part of it. You're going to Certain bits are going to run up against people's fears or their preconceived notions, and they may not want to hear things outside of the bounds of what they deem to be appropriate. But that's part of the game of stand-up, finding a way into these subjects. So that's what makes it that sometimes makes it challenging, but that's what we have to figure out. That's why it's hard sometimes. If you
I
want to
can
talk about,
imagine. Oh,
well, look,
sorry.
look at someone like Louis C.K. He talks about the most, he's one of my favorite extreme topics. He'll cover almost any topic, but he finds a way in to present it. So that's really the job of the comedian. Now, it's not always easy. I'm not gonna say it's easy. It's an easy time. No, so I agree with them on that, but it can be done. So
It does seem too like, I mean, on that note, that's I assume part of the fun is the challenge there of, okay, so here I am. I have this concept of, like you said, okay, I'm going to tell an abortion joke. Now I'm in Alabama where something like that might not be so
Exactly.
accepted. So how do I get in front of this crowd, and how do I win these people over, and how do I tell this joke, make people laugh, still convey a message, and have them with you the whole time. So I imagine not only is that an art form, but to me, I feel like that's the chase too. That's the goal. That I assume that's where the high from the experience is coming from, is just to be able to do that, just to take someone that would not laugh at an abortion joke and then have them in the palm of your hands after you tell that joke.
Well, there is some logic to it. Like, for example, I wouldn't open with that. You can build, if you have a longer set, it's easier to continue pushing. And once you have people on board, so if I'm featuring or headlining, then I like to do that, really kind of, I don't know, escalate over time the subject matter. So it's kind of a game, but you never know if everything's going to work. Sometimes they go too far. Sometimes you're losing. That's part of the whole fun of it. You're losing them and trying to get them back. And then it's a push-pull kind of situation. It's not always just like they're like an ideal video game, right? So that's kind of what makes it fun. And each crowd is different. Sometimes they're with you the whole time and it's just coasting. You're just surfing. But other times it's like surfing a little bit. If you've ever surfed, sometimes the waves are really choppy and it's very hard to find a break. And then it's not what you imagine. Other times you can just coast and it's easy. You don't have a problem. It depends on the night and the crowd and just so many factors. How many comics have come up and what the vibe is, how drunk people are. It could be like 100 different things. What the makeup of the crowd is another thing. So, but it's
each crowd is different, right? It's like a snowflake.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not like an Elvis impersonator because each one of those are the same, but it's more like a snowflake.
You can't go out there and sing Hound Dog and everybody just falls to their knees. You gotta crack the egg.
Right. I think that's what that is. At least with me, that's my act changes a lot night to night and room to room. I kind of feel out what kind of crowd this is, what kind of situation this is. But some are more stick to pretty much what they do. But yeah. Have you ever tried stand up, or you were just thinking about it?
I have written stuff since high school, and every time I look at it, I just think that I'm not good at life and that no one will ever like me and this is stupid and don't do this. Which I think that's like also seems to be the same kind of mentality that every stand-up comedian has. So maybe I just have to get over that hump of
Drew, I'm just gonna say it. I feel like you and me bantering back and forth on stage would be good stand up. We occasionally have some bangers that come out between the two of us.
It's hard to figure out when it's just us two chatting. Like when we bring in that extra guy, like when you're on, I almost hit like this journalist mode where my personality as a human kind of disappears, and then I'm kind of like, all right, this is a hard topic. We are going to get to the issues. We're going to talk to our guests. And then like people, when I stop recording, are kind of shocked by my disgusting and sick personality and the amount of humor that actually I'm capable of having. Because when we're rolling, like I kind of become like that straight man, and I let JC kind of, he's the second Mike funny guy. I'm Opie, he's Anthony for a lot of people. And, so I don't know, man. Like when I write, I feel like a lot of my writing is more geared towards sketches, more so than maybe a stand-up routine. So I think if I maybe just refined the material a little bit and finally just found a stage to try it out, like I'm not afraid to go on stage. Like public speaking is not something that worries me. Now reading,
that's not what you said before we started the podcast.
Public reading and public speaking are two different things.
Okay. Sure.
So like I could never sit here on a podcast even with a stranger that I've never met before and have a conversation if I was worried about public speaking.
Just don't make him read anything, right?
Right, yeah. If then I'll start headbutting and derping because I said squirrel instead of quirrel once in 8th grade.
So there is a slight difference when it's when you're in the stand-up world than when you're on the podcast world, because, for example, a podcast, you can be funny extemporaneously. You sort of have that as a backdrop, but with stand-up, it's a little bit more immediate. People want to. It's got the bar has to be a little higher with the comedy in general, because they're like make me laugh now, and it's something that might work in a conversation might not necessarily work in stand-up. No, it might translate, but that's part of the difficulty is finding its own medium. Which not to say that you can't go from one to the other. Many do so. But just try it. You should definitely try it.
One of my favorite podcasts that translated over into comedy the best was Small Town Murder with James and Jimmy. The funniest dudes that can tell you a story about people getting murdered and eviscerated, and you still can laugh at it. Nobody like looks at you like, what is wrong with you that you're laughing at this?
Right. Oh, I like that kind of dark material.
The dark humor is always where it's at, because you could tell. You can go to anyone's grandmother or great grandmother and say, do you guys, what's the funniest thing you've ever heard of? For them might be a fart joke on TV or something, but everybody really likes that dark visceral humor underneath. They won't say it out loud,
right?
But they'll laugh at it.
A friend of mine, Pat Dixon, he has this show called New York City Crime Report. It was on Compound Media, since you mentioned Opie and Anthony. Actually, Anthony run, but he kind of parted ways with them. But it goes off the whole podcast, and it was also video at that time, goes off the New York City police blotter. He'll read murders, and then comedians will sort of joke about. I don't know if you guys have seen this podcast, or listened, but it's very similar. Sounds to what you were referring.
Yeah, that actually sounds
only
really
real
funny.
Yeah,
I'll have to look into it. I kind of forgot Compound Media was a thing for a while. I think wasn't Legion of Skanks out of Compound Media years ago? Perhaps it might have been.
Maybe started there. I thought it was on Cast Digital, but there's a bunch more. In Hot Water is on there. Gino and it was Aaron Berg was on it, but they separated. There's a few. Actually, Dave Landau was on there. You mentioned him. I don't think he's doing it anymore, but for a while he was on there. There's a few more. Christy Mayer, you know her?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
So she has something called The Wet Spot on there.
Yeah, it's sweet. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. You just kind of brought that back to my memory. Like I had completely forgot about Compound. I don't remember what the circumstance was. I don't know if Anthony left before he had those heart problems or not, but I know that he's kind of been sidelined from heart surgery for a long time now.
I haven't been following the latest, but that sounds about right. He definitely runs that operation. So
yeah.
You don't know the status of his heart, Matt? Come on.
Yeah, I got to talk to his cardiologist.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, he had open heart surgery a couple of months back.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. He was very much gonna die.
Oh wow, I didn't realize.
Yeah, he went into the hospital for something, and they, for whatever reason, just decided to check his something with the cardio, And the doctor came back in and was like, "Yeah, you're gonna go in for surgery right now, or you're gonna die." So I remember he had like open heart surgery. Norton talked about it a while back because Norton actually even went over and visited him like in the hospital because of how kind of out of nowhere and egregious the situation was for everybody.
Man, that is horrible.
Yeah,
a lot of people dropping nowadays. A lot of people having these myocarditis and these kinds of problems.
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about why though.
I know exactly.
Wink,
That's part of why
wink.
I'm here in Alabama. That's part of what got me down here. I'll just say that. So, well, I'm not the biggest fan of risers and things that rhyme with it, but I don't know. I don't want to get you guys banned.
It's kind of a topic for one of the other shows that we do.
We're on our way there anyways, so
yeah.
Oh, because if you're on Rumble, so
we're on Rumble. Everybody subscribe on Rumble.
If you're on, then you're familiar with that.
We've been watching our contemporaries drop like flies off of YouTube over the last couple of months, just waiting our turn.
Oh man.
Yeah. But so since you were kind of more of a writer and then kind of fell into comedy, what or who would you cite as your influences in comedy?
When I started or now, because
either one.
Either one.
Like where's your inspiration and influence? And
well, they're kind of, when I started, the kind of obvious one, the biggest probably influence, and it may be because I'm Hebrew Crew, and it's going to sound obvious, but it's just Woody Allen. I was always obsessed with his films, his stand-up, the whole package, really, the writing. So I was just, and there was many others that of that tradition, I guess. Dangerfield, Don Rickles, kind of those old school comedians, a little bit of Andy Kaufman. But I'd say today, like I had mentioned before, Louis C.K. would be for a big name, maybe the biggest influence. But there's so many. I mean, I like comedians of all different styles and types. That's kind of one of the interesting things, is that you look at a joke and then, okay, how would Stephen Wright do this? How would Hedberg do this? How would George Carlin deliver this? Or there's just so many ways to approach comedy, and everyone has their own take on it, their own persona on stage. So I find that interesting. Kind of like I enjoy just watching it as a fan myself, and just seeing different types of comedy, different. Like, okay, this guy's doing a more ranty. This person's doing a story. This person's more jokes. Oh, this is impressions. That's interesting to me too. So.
Yeah. As far as that goes, you had brought up Stephen Wright and Hedberg. Those are two guys that in my youth were very influential for me. I feel like I listened to Mitch All About It so often that like the disc started to like skip, like it quit working because I ran through it so much. And Stephen Wright was just this incredible genius. He just took like a 2-year break from comedy, and he's been writing a book on his phone. He was talking about it recently on a podcast, and he just kind of stepped away from comedy, and one day when he was at the beach started typing on his phone, and now he has this full-blown, I can't remember if it's a children's book or like a novel, but
I think it's the novel. I saw that. I saw him on Conan with it. It's complete now.
Yeah.
It's out.
Yeah, he just wrote it on his phone. He just bored one day and just started typing, and now here's this novel from Stephen Wright. Carlin is another one that definitely was huge for me when I was a kid, but for multiple reasons. I had to like grow into seeing him as a comedian, because my earliest memory of Carlin is when he was on the PBS show with the train when he was the conductor. I can't even remember if it was Thomas the Train or if it was something else, but that's always like really jarring when you go back and you see, some of these more wholesome roles that guys had played, and then you're like, oh, okay, not only is this guy a comedian, but this is the 7 words you can't say on TV guy, and now he's talking to us children, teaching us life and with a train. It's
right,
kind of like,
right. No, that is it. That is interesting to me too. It's like, oh, now he's in the equivalent of Picasso's Blue Period, right? And it's
yeah.
bitch, whatever, piss, cunt, faggot, whatever I forgot all the words that he can't say. And before that, he's doing this observational stuff that's pretty innocuous, and he's just innocent. Yeah, so that is a strange. But then you got like Cezanne. He just always painted pictures of fruit, and
Yeah.
or like Stephen Wright. He basically always did those one-liner kind of jokes, which fit his dry style and his persona perfectly. But yeah, that is interesting. Looking at the trajectory, and then people always compare Carlin to Pryor. They both started out much more clean cut and sort of mainstream, and then kind of became more edgy and more radicalized, I guess, over time.
Then you had Cosby, who is as wholesome as you get.
No. Big fan. Only the extracurriculars, not the not the comedy. Not the comedy. Only I learned everything I know about roofing from Bill. No, just
I remember after he got in trouble for that, but before he went to prison, he started touring again, and the ads he ran to promote his shows locally were him roofing chicks. Like he jumped right into it for his advertising campaign, and there were women, and he would like drop it in, and they would drink the Spanish Fly, and then they would fall down, and he had like this robe that he was messing with. So right before he actually went to prison for all of that, he really dove hard into like he leaned into it, and I mean, regardless of what actually happened comedically, I thought that was hilarious. Like, it blew my mind when I saw it. It was a late night TV ad. My mouth literally hit the floor. But 10 years later, I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Wow, you got to send that my way, Dr. Huxtable getting dirty. I'd like to. I'd like to. Yeah, I mean, this weird. I know OJ, a friend of mine. He played Kato Kalin in this OJ straight to DVD movie that came out. It was around the time when he was writing that book, If I Did It. And basically, I don't know if you recall this, but OJ was rapping. He had the backup dancers with the money, and he also sold a white Bronco with the bullet holes into it to a Kato Kalin character. It was my friend that looked like him, and various other stunts like this because OJ needed money. And I forgot the name of the product. I think it's called Juiced. If you want to look it up. But it's a straight to DVD movie that OJ made. And speaking of Kato Kalin, this goes full circle. The show was on last month. Kato Kalin was on it. If you believe it. He was the surprise guest. It was pretty surprising. Not as surprising as if Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown showed up with a knife wound in the throat, but it was pretty surprising. I didn't know he does stand up now. Kato Kalin.
Oh yeah. Does it bother you when something like that happens? Do you ever get bumped when somebody like huge comes into town, or like I know that happens in New York quite a lot. People get bumped because Chappelle decides he's going to try something.
No, that's happened for sure. But usually, if someone, like I had a show at one point at Eastville, for example, and then they got a call, Jim Gaffigan wants to do time. I mean, it's Jim Gaffigan. What are you going to do? You're going to be like, no, sorry, Jim. So you know, of course,
we've
cool.
heard the Hot Pocket joke. Come on, man, we could get rid of Jim Gaffigan from. Let's get Matt up on stage. What's he gonna?
Yeah,
how
but
many times?
I mean, no one wants to see me. I mean, even if they're my Nagins, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I have Jim Gaffigan status, but a lot of the times, bigger names, depends on the type of show. Even a smaller show will stop by. They just don't want to be on the marketing or the because then someone will say, oh, I can get a ticket for cheaper, then I'm not going to pay X, Y, and Z. So it could affect their sales or something. But every comic has to work out material, even big names. So
yeah, I've always heard that, like, especially in New York, that the best time to hit the club would be like Monday through Wednesday, because that's when a lot of these surprise huge names decide to just kind of go out and try stuff because they're free those days and they're not booked up on the weekends.
That's right on.
So
100%.
So you mentioned your Nagins just now.
Oh, right. My last name's Nagin, so
right. No, understood. So your fans, or the people that you refer to as your Nagins. Yeah, right. Can you explain to us where that came from?
Right. So my last name is Nagin, and it sounds like the worst possible racial slur. You know, because you say it fast.
I think you should say it on here.
Yeah. So white people, they don't know how to pronounce it. They're scared. They want to call me Matt N-word, and black people, they're more black. Like on a show, black hosts will be like, "Give it up for my Nagin," you know, stuff like that. They lean into it. This Nagin's crazy stuff. So anyway, I hope you guys are my Nagin lovers. I hope you guys will get into the Nagin world. And but yeah, I got a T-shirt. You my Nagin with alien creatures on it, and that's cool. That's part of my merch. And I got a humor book. Do not feed the clown. Sorry, it's shameless self-promotion, but it's a great book. It's definitely outside the box. You're not going to see anything like it.
Yeah, we're all about promotion here. We'll include all that stuff on our show notes and everything. And I was actually I was wanting to get into kind of the books that you have out, because you had said that you started more so as you consider yourself a writer, and with all of the books that you do have out, you have some poetry out, right?
Well, 3 of the books are poetry, but the one I was referring to is a humor book called Do Not Feed the Clown. And it's 34 pieces on different contemporary topics, kind of in a style akin to Shouts and Murmurs, not in the New Yorker, kind of these short pieces. And for example, there's a piece in there, if you recall, during the Harvey Weinstein situation, where there was a report that he masturbated into a potted plant at this club Socialista. So this is an account from the plant who got masturbated on, and the plant is in love with Harvey Weinstein.
Damn.
She's fantasizing about how that was her greatest day of her life, when the great film producer busted a nut all over her leaves, and how she's been trying to work her way up the Hollywood ladder and whatnot. So anyway, it's just wild stuff that is outside the box. You probably won't read anything like it elsewhere. So
that's a really funny concept.
Yes, thank you.
Take a moment to appreciate that. Just throw props your way for it. It's the type of depravity that I appreciate, and like I could almost relate to that train of thought that goes into like.
He also relates to getting nuts busted on quite frequently as well.
More than I like to admit.
You had totally were set up for that. That was just a setup right out the park.
To be honest, Matt, I was waiting for you to say it, but
I don't know him that well, and I figured I lay it out for you. I think that's like a bromance thing you guys have, and
it was laid out beautifully. I'll say
it was.
Yes, just as I am, as I wait for the nut to explode. But
So you need visual effects. That will take this podcast to the next level. If you had
well, we have a couple here, but we
Rumble.com.
don't have any nutting on plants just yet. But
all right,
that'll be what I Photoshop tonight after this episode is.
We gotta have dollar signs. It's a money shot. So, and you can have me with my Jew horns, loving the money shot. All right.
But your poetry books, are they just like, are they kind of like deeper, like actual poetry? I'm not too familiar with that world, so I don't know. Like,
yeah, it's a total
comedy.
There's a few comedic ones, but most of them are serious, and it's a whole other vibe. But I have other books now I'm trying to put out. 2 novels, and one is storybook, and one is more comedic memoir. But they're all somewhat comedic. So that's my next projects. I'm trying to continue with the writing, but because I've been doing so much stand up, and I still do a little acting and stuff like that. In my free time, I haven't had the time to finish it yet, but that's on the docket for me. But yeah, I enjoy. I mean, comedy requires writing too, so that's part of it. But I enjoy probably the writing part of it the most. The great part with stand-up itself is that you just get the feedback. A lot of writing, you never really know exactly. You kind of think certain things are funny, but with stand-up, you get that immediate sense. Either they hate you and want to kill you, or they love you and they're giving you their number and their underwear, or whatever. So it's that's what makes that an interesting world.
Well, since you are a writer, I have a question to pose for you, just kind of again based off of what I've heard so many others say. Are you the type that will sit down and you will write and that'll be how you spend your day, or are you one of these comedians that likes to write on stage, so to speak, where you'll take a concept and then work on it in front of the crowd and kind of figure it out along the way?
It's a little bit of both, but it's more that I haven't worked out. But what I've been doing more recently is more voice memos. So it's more that I have a concept that I think could be a joke. I do it as a voice memo, as an initial draft. And then over time, with performing it or writing it down or thinking about it more, it gets fleshed out more, developed. But the reason I like voice memo is a lot of stand-up is intonation. If I say hell, that could actually be a punchline in stand-up. If it was the right moment or the timing, it wouldn't be on the page though. Or just saying nothing, just a physical gesture. So, but I feel like the voice memo gets at it better sometimes than writing it down, although I do that as well. So that's kind of how I've been doing it lately. But the thing with stand up is, if you do decide to do it, when you go on stage, what I noticed is that some of my best ideas I get after I come off stage or the next morning. So there is something to just being around it, the milieu, hearing other jokes. Not that you're copying other jokes, but your brain starts thinking, it starts cycling. Similarly, if you have a show, it's like your brain starts going in overdrive because now you're starting to sweat. Oh man, I got to do 30 minutes. Which jokes am I going to do? And kind of necessity is the mother of invention. If you have no show, you might not be too inclined to come up with something. It's weird. So
yeah, how do you battle in that regard when you're around other comedians and you're hearing other jokes? How do you battle even just accidentally kind of borrowing from them? Like, I remember Big J Okerson had a story about how he realized that he had just completely accidentally ripped off Dave Attell, right? Just none of the jokes or anything, but like the cadence of what he was saying. He was doing his set one night and he was like, "This is Dave Attell." So from that like moment on, like he completely got everything that he had worked on for that set. He just threw out. And I mean, I guess with Jay, it's a lot easier considering all the crowd work and stuff that he does, and that's kind of his thing. But even somebody on that caliber was like, I completely ripped off Attell, and I didn't even realize I was doing it until I heard it back one day. So, like, how do you battle, even accidentally borrowing in that regard?
I haven't had a major issue with that. Because I tend to I try to come up with my own ideas, put it that way, and I'm a little bit off the beaten path. So it doesn't usually. I've had a little more of an issue a few times. I thought someone either took my idea, to be honest, or maybe I'm just grandiose delusional or something akin to it. That has been a bit of a problem. And it could have been parallel thought. But there's been one or two situations that were dicey. But in terms of me, it hasn't been an issue because, I'll put it this way, I like coming up with, the whole fun of it for me is coming up with something myself, even if it's not as strong as something someone else could come up with. So there's been maybe one or two times ever, I've been doing this a while, where I took a tag from someone. Sometimes a comic will be like, I have one line you could say. It's possible that I would accept something, but it's very rare. And that's they're offering it. But yeah, it's just, for the most part, I feel like most comics, they're in their own realm. They're in their own world. So a lot of times I'll think of something and it could be great for somebody else, but it wouldn't be appropriate for me. So,
right.
so it hasn't been a huge issue for me. I don't know. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Well, what did you do when you thought somebody was ripping you off? Did you call them out there on the spot, or?
I don't want to say any specific name, but I have approached.
Damn it, Seinfeld.
In certain cases, I have brought it up with people privately. I never put anyone on blast. There was one time I was really considering it, but I decided against it. But I did have evidence from a review showing that this joke was already listed years before, and I knew that person had seen me, and it was a very specific joke. And because it was listed mentioned in a review, I had very concrete evidence. And I was kind of blown off that it could have been a parallel thought or something. But
yeah,
there was no way this was a parallel thought in this particular case. It was too specific.
Yeah. I think the most recent kind of bigger example of that, I guess, years ago, people were throwing Amy Schumer under the bus for like, random things like that. But I remember just hearing not too long ago that Dion Cole had purposely taken something from Robert Kelly because Bobby had pissed him off or something. And there's a misunderstanding. So then Dion Cole stole some joke about, I only have 30 summers left before I'm dead. I'm not going to spend them around these people. Or it was pretty egregious, actually, because like when you listen to the audio, I don't know, Bobby had talked about it even on the bonfire. So I know it's like probably awkward for you, and you have to see these people and you have to kind of behave in a club or a theater or wherever you're at. But I don't know how I would handle it. I would probably cause a scene. I'm a scene causer in most cases.
Yes, he is. Very much so.
I should maybe be more confrontational. I tend to try to avoid confrontation, which isn't always the best approach. But there are certain cases where it reaches a level where something has to at least be said to defend your own self-esteem. however dwindling that is. So that is a. But I'll tell you that I've also seen, as you mentioned, Dion Cole. I can't say anything, but except for that, there was a comic in one situation which came and did a whole routine from Dion Cole, and I've been in other, and then he got kicked out of a place. Or I've seen even working headliners that I opened for on a road gig where they basically took, half their act was just other people's act. Like they were doing, I'm not gonna say his name, but doing a dummy like Jeff Dunham, then doing jokes that were, oh, that's a Woody Allen joke. Last time I was inside a woman, it was the Statue of Liberty. Oh, that's a Rodney Dangerfield. Oh, that's a,
Yeah.
The crowd loved it, but it was all stolen. And then he says to me, "Oh, you're good persona up there, but you work on your material." That's his advice. I had to hold my tongue because I didn't want to burn my bridges. But I'm like, "Are you serious?
Oh, wow.
You've used the entire pantheon of what's on Google. Of course you're gonna kill. I mean, you got a Richard Lewis thing. You got but that's on the road. That won't work in New York. People will spot you out. But on the road, it's kind of a crazy world where sometimes there's some comics that just take everything right from, it's just stolen. The whole act is a stolen act.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna probably, at least, especially if you're touring, you're gonna run into more people who haven't heard what you're stealing than the people who have heard it. Like the bachelor parties or the bachelorette parties that are sitting down in the front row causing a scene, probably don't know Woody Allen all that much to recognize that you took that from him. So I guess that's a really fair point. I remember a few years ago, there was I think Australia's Got Talent, that somebody was doing all previously written and famous work from other comedians, and he was just going up and delivering other people's work, and they were pushing him through because he was doing it well and they thought it was funny, and the justification was that a musician is able to cover somebody else's song. Why should a comedian not be able to cover somebody else's jokes? And that, like, even as someone that's not a comedian, was infuriating to me. I was enraged by it. Even the idea that somebody would not only think that way, express it, and then put it on national television.
That is actually kind of horrifying to me. That's almost there should be a like a Stephen King kind of horror novel about some. Actually, I guess they have what was that? Kings of Comedy, the Scorsese with Rupert Pupkin, which is almost on horror level. But I feel like there's more that could be mined for the kind of psychotic person who walks around stealing jokes and then acts like their own, because it's very hard to copyright. It's not like screenplays and stuff. It's only by reputation. So in New York, your reputation will be burned. You can't really get away with it, and people will know in 2 seconds. But like I said, if you're just on some of these road gigs in the middle of nowhere, in theory, I'm not saying that you should do it, because if you're a creative person, I feel like you should want to come up with something yourself, right? You should want it to be authentic to who you are and what you're trying to say and what differentiates you from anyone else. Otherwise, why even bother? Just work at IBM or something.
Yeah, and imagine the narcissism or mental illness that would be consuming a person to need everybody's attention to be on them, to take that laughter and to have that energy shared with something that you knowingly stole, and it is fake and it's false and it's not yours, and that connection that you think you have with that crowd isn't even real. Like it's mind numbing, and I think it's a huge character study that people should do on these individuals that do that too, because like, what was the purpose behind any of it?
Well, it definitely attracts some wackadoodles. There's some nut job. It's probably like similar to the, I don't know, the BDSM or the horror, some kind of whatever community you want to say is, not that there's anything wrong with any of that. I'm just saying it's like a fringe activity, and you meet some characters that are definitely on the DSM scale for various kinds of mental disorders. I probably have a few of them. So that seems to be who's drawn to this world, or people that are, physically unique, or I don't know. It just seems to be part of the game. And that, I guess that's part of what makes it interesting, though, is you finding these characters who you won't really see in so much of mainstream society.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe there's also some kind of I don't know, safe net in that. Like, if you're stealing jokes and you're not you're not killing and you're up there bombing, you're like, oh, at least I didn't write it,
Oh, I see. No, those people should be shot. I'm just saying. I just meant in comedy in general. We should just execute. We should, like Dostoevsky, before the firing squad. Bam, just take them out. In fact, we should get up a posse right now and just lynch these motherfuckers. But no, it's like the one cardinal sin. I'm sure you saw the Rogan and Mencia, and I the one I give, Leary gets it for, with Hicks, and even Robin Williams. I give a pass to a certain extent, because he was a manic genius, and he would just sort of like a black hole to suck up everything and then put it through his filter. And such a funny, like, manic, crazy guy. The Leary, I love Leary, and No Cure for Cancer is one of my favorite performances I've ever seen. But there's a few of those, man. He ripped off Hicks bad, though. If you really watch those old tapes, it's crazy. I mean, it's like a stain on his legacy, what he did. So
he doesn't. I mean, he's not very active too much these days. I don't feel like either.
No,
ever since Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. And
right.
I haven't really seen or heard from him.
And he never matched No Cure for Cancer, and it's probably because Hicks was his writer, in a sense. You know what I mean? I mean, that Jim Fix thing, that was right out of. There was so many. The I love to smoke. I love the thing with the warning label. Like, there was like 6 different bits. The shot, the bits, right? I don't have to go into them, but it's a problem. But so where are you guys taking this podcast from here? You're just
we're sending it to the Kamala Harris campaign.
I don't know if you saw that or not, but it really started today. Like, it picked up. So we don't have any money to donate, so we just create content. We're content miners for Kamala Harris.
That's cool. It's better than Bitcoin miner, I guess. And you got to have an "I'm with her" poster up here. And I saw Joe called in to the campaign event. I didn't see much more than that, but it was weird. He sounded like God. He was on the God. He was calling, and it was just a weird delusional.
Are we sure it wasn't on God's phone? Like, he was calling from sitting next to God?
Yeah, true. He basically died 3 years ago. It's like Weekend at Bernie's, but
shooting him with methamphetamine and using a series of sticks and twigs to lift his arms.
Yes, they've been
Actually,
doing
those
that.
little popsicle sticks that you get.
Popsicle, yeah. Exactly. Actually, that was Hitler's drug of choice, methamphetamines. I don't know if you know that.
I thought you were gonna say that was Hitler's joke. I was like, well, shit, I'm out here stealing Hitler's jokes. I'm in trouble, man.
The one person
Hitler.
you probably
Damn.
don't want to steal jokes from.
I mean, I've been trying to
Too
steal his
soon.
shit for years. I didn't know he had jokes.
Yeah.
Though.
I mean, the armband. You got to start with the armband. I don't know if you want to get into
Stole his whole manuscript for his novel
man.
too, man. It was,
Yeah,
I mean, I knew Mein Kampf was a poetry book. It's beautiful,
Yes.
but I didn't think I was gonna have to steal from it.
I mean, Mein Kampf too. That could be a hit. I think that could be. I think that might be in the public domain. I think you got something.
I think you're right.
Mine's still comped.
Mine's still comped.
But this was fun and informative. We usually cut it off at about an hour, so I always enjoy when I can say that was a fast hour, and I wasn't expecting to see it when I looked at our recording time. So,
he likes hearing a fast hour compared to like a fast 20 seconds.
Oh, I knew that. I almost knew that one was coming.
He's giving me far too much credit.
Yeah, 20 seconds is you should have a live podcast while you're in bed with whatever you're in bed with,
No, because then it would be me. We'd be in bed together.
I don't know how much punishment your audience can take, but
I think they've secretly wanted to catch us in bed for a year now.
Oh yeah,
Sasquatch as the third.
Oh, as the reach around, the hairy reach around. There you go.
On that note,
do you have any upcoming dates you want to plug?
Yeah, you can
books, everything, man.
Check my Cal. I got a website, mattnagin.com, Nagin, and you can see coming up. I'll be at Beaches Comedy Club coming up, and some other spots. I'll be in New York in September doing a bunch of spots, and yes, you can check me out at Nagin Please on the various social medias. So IG, TikTok, and all that good stuff. X. And thank you for having me on, guys. I appreciate the little chat and getting to know you. Fun podcast. You guys are great hosts. And look forward to checking out more of your work.
Though.
What?
Don't gaslight me.
The hour's up, man. You don't have to.
With all you're paying me, I gotta give you a little plug.
Hurry up and hit the end button before he says something else.
But thank you. I appreciate it a lot. These are shows that I've really been wanting to branch out, and your world fascinates me. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And it's a little, I guess for a comedian, it's not that late. But I always keep JC up way past his bedtime for these shows.
Right on. Well, great talking with you guys.
Yes. Thank you.
The preceding program has been brought to you by the Watchers Podcast Network. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends to help grow our network. Check us out on all social media platforms, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, thanks for your support.
No, he did.